Hi, welcome to the 18th meeting of the Community Representation Initiative for Red Hill. We're coming to you live and direct from Puna Puna, and we're going to start with an oldie.
Okay. This is an oli that was composed by Kumukoi couple Kalani Hewitt, and it is to help us center on what is important tonight, which is our vai and the future of this island. Ola I ka ha, ola I ka vai, ola I ka I, Hawaii, Hawaii, Hawaii. Ola I ka ha, ola I ka vai, ola I ka I, Hawaii, Hawaii, Hawaii. Ola I ka ha, ola I ka vai, ola I ka I, Hawaii, Hawaii, Hawaii.
Thank you very much. From here, we'll go to introductions. We'll just go around the table and online so everyone knows who everyone is. My name is Marty Townsend. I live in Kalihi, and I am an at-large member on the CRI and the reluctant chair.
Aloha, my name is Helani Sonora Pale. I am the representative representing Kanaka Maoli interest. Mahalo.
Aloha, I'm Melody Aduha, and I represent an organization involved in environmental issues, and that's the Environmental Caucus of the Democratic Party. Aloha.
Aloha mai kako. My name is Mai Hall. I am a Native Hawaiian representative and an affected family member.
Aloha, I'm Yalisa Otis. I'm at large for the community. Mahalo.
Ilima, go ahead.
Aloha, I'm Ilima DaCosta. I am a Oahu at-large member, and I would like to take this time to honor my daughter Elizabeth, whose birthday would have been today if she did not die prematurely, so she would have been 34 years old. I think it's very important because Elizabeth was born a military dependent and died a military dependent, and we really want to make sure, as the president said and others from the Department of Defense, that Hawaii is the tip of the spear. If we are the tip of the spear, then we really need to keep our military families and their and the members safe as much as possible. So please take a moment to honor Elizabeth. I really do appreciate all of you for being here today. Mahalo.
Hello, I'm Bill South. I'm an at-large member from Windward, Oahu, Kaneohe.
Yeah, go ahead, Joyce.
Good afternoon, good evening. I'm Joyce with the Board of Water Supply.
Thanks. And then we can go online. Tara?
Hello, my name is Tara Sutton, and I am I'm an affected community member for the CRI.
Thanks. Michelle?
Aloha, I am Michelle Jericho Poplar. I am also an affected community member, representative of Capilina Beach Homes, member of the CRI.
Thanks, Michelle. Mandy?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Mandy Find. I also represent impacted families. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we're going to, everyone has the agenda. We have a couple of announcements we wanted to make. First, we have some upcoming events that we want to make sure everyone knows about. There'll be a display of those so that I don't mess up any of the dates. But basically, we have the state's field constructed fuel tanks meeting, which will be April 9th. It's run by the Department of Health in collaboration with the Navy. We are currently trying to help the Department of Health develop the agenda for that meeting. So if people have opinions, please do let the Department of Health know. Then we also have what we think will be the next CRI meeting on the third Thursday April 17th, here, 5 to 7 p.m. And then April 20th is the comment deadline for the draft environmental assessment for the Red Hill Water Treatment Facility. And we will get into more detail about what that is in this meeting. Any other event announcements that we need to make, things that I have forgotten? Okay, good. Next, we wanted to talk briefly about the structure of the CRI meetings. As you know, the whole point of this rigmarole that we go through is for people like us, regular human beings, to ask questions directly of the Navy and get answers back. And as you can see, for many, many months now, they haven't been showing up. We thought they were going to come in December when we all promised to follow the ground rules. Unfortunately, it didn't pan out, and now we are back here again. The ground rules said that they would attend one meeting per quarter, and we haven't seen high or low of them this year, and we are in the third meeting of the quarter. So they promise that they will come to the next meeting, provided that we actually sign the ground rules. Part of their frustration, they felt that we weren't sincere when we said last time that we promised, like, cross our hearts that we would follow the ground rules. And so they're going to have us go through the rigmarole of signing it, which we will probably do today. But in addition to that, we're going to change up the structure a little bit of these meetings. So for those meetings where no Navy attends, which we expect to be 2 meetings every quarter, it'll be just us chickens, and we're going to break up into groups. So it'll be a group of 5 that meet one meeting a quarter, and another group of 5 of us the next meeting of the quarter, and then one meeting a quarter. In theory, because the Navy will show up, all of us will be there. Anything else we want to say about changes in our structure and how we're going to operate? Okay.
I do want to say something, that we are volunteers, and that this is taking up a lot of our time, and we have given many hours to not only setting this up, but to communication and attempts to communicate with the EPA and with the Navy regarding the water, the situation with our water. So this will help us by breaking up into 2 groups. It'll help us to take a rest. From here on out, at least we'll have a little bit of a break, because we've been doing this every single month for the past 18 months. Thanks.
Yeah. Ridiculous. All right. In addition to that, because the Navy did not show up at the December meeting like we all expected them to, the EPA fined them, issued a fine for $5,000, which is basically, I don't know, the cost of tissue paper at the military. And the Navy contested that, and they did not want to pay even $5,000, which just blows my mind. So instead, they made a whole bunch of paperwork, and the EPA folded and said that they will forego the $5,000 fine, provided that they attend the April meeting. And they said fine, so long as we all sign and swear that we're going to follow the ground rules. And just on that note, I want to say, it's fine for the Navy to have, expectations and standards in terms of how the meetings would be scheduled and structured and things like that. It's something completely different for them to expect us to like it and to express our love for it. So, I hate that we have to go through this, and I hate that they expect me to have to be, sweet about it. I'm mad. My water is contaminated. My kids' water is contaminated, right? The future of our island is in peril. And, if a foreign government had done this to us, we would all be up in arms, right? But because we are framing the U.S. as our government, we're like, the Navy can just say, oopsie whoopsie, and it's all okay. And that's just not true. So we will continue to hold the Navy accountable. We will follow the ground rules. We will sign them. We promise to be nice and promise to only talk about what they want to talk about. But we will also, be pointed about it as well. So with that, I'm going to pass around this piece of paper just so we can document for everyone. We're signing the community ground rules, the Community Representation Initiative ground rules, written by the Navy and supported by the EPA and forced upon the CRI. Okay, thanks. All right. As that's going around, we can go through any other. And well, does anybody else have any commentary that they want to add as we are signing this document? You guys are. Don't mean to hog the mics. Take it away, Melody. You gave me the look.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Chair. I will be signing the document. However, my signature is made with objection. There are many things in this document that does not seem to comply with our duty as a community representation initiatives in the sense that we are supposed to look for transparency and for accuracy and to let the community know that there is going to be some accountability. But here we are strapped to have to sign a document that's going to limit our scope of questioning, that's going to limit the answers that we're going to get, that's going to limit the amount of time that's going to be given to the non-CRI members to ask questions, and that no answers are going to be given until the next meeting, or according to the document, within 30 days. But that seems to be inconsistent because the Navy, EPA, DLA are only going to be responsible in being part of our meeting one day out of the quarter. So I'm not quite sure how that's going to jive. They have a responsibility under the document to give us answers within 30 days. And from our past experience, we've had outstanding questions to the amount of 300 questions, and a lot of them remain unanswered. So in that regard, we do want to press forward. I do want to press forward. I still want to make this work. Therefore, I will be signing. However, my signature is with objection because there are things that are not neutral and are not agreeable, such as our wish list at the last meeting. That was something we never agreed to, and that did take some time. So hopefully this neutral moderator will also not do things that are a surprise for us. All right.
I'd like to say something while Melody is signing. I want to remind everyone that even though the EPA has mandated that the Navy would only participate in one meeting a quarter, the CRI will continue to hold those monthly meetings with the changes that Marty and Heilani had described. And I also want to remind you that while we will be adjusting the meeting times because we want to accommodate Olelo has given over the 18 months, Olelo has donated all of this airtime, all of the staffing time, so I wanted to thank Olelo for that. So the meetings will be shorter, but the meetings will focus on one topic a meeting. We won't have multiple topics, multiple speakers in that regard, so to be a little bit more focused. But in exchange for that, we're still maintaining that 1 hour for public comment. So even though the Navy is only allowing 2 hours of public comment a year, right? Because if it's 30 minutes a meeting, that's 30 minutes a quarter, and that equals 2 hours a year. The CRI is still intending on providing the extra hour that the public is entitled to. So I apologize that we couldn't do more for the community, but we're working on it. And one of the things I think we're really working on now is trying to hold our public authority, Department of Health, more responsible for their lapses in the lack of enforcement. So mahalo.
Any other commentary? Online?
Yes, thank you, Marty. It's
Go ahead,
Mandy.
In a similar vein, I am going to sign, in spite of my objections to the overall tenor of this letter, which basically is trying to minimize transparency and ultimately reduce community input. So, it's sort of a Weasley way to get us to comply. So it's a controlling device, but I'm signing anyway. So, doing my duty.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, if there's no other commentary on that, we'll
Mark.
move on to
Marty,
the
do you
Red
hear
Hood Registry
Mandy?
has announcements. Yeah, go ahead, Tara.
Before we go on to the registry, Mandy had something to say.
Can you all hear me? I think you guys can hear me online, but Marty, can you hear
So
me in the
we
room?
actually can't hear you, and I can see that you are speaking, but I can't hear you in the studio. But everybody else can hear you out in the world. So please go ahead and make your announcements, and I'm sure that'll all get fixed as soon as necessary. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. As the only active duty service member who sits on this board, obviously I speak on behalf of impacted families um, in my civilian capacity, but I was serving on active duty then, and I'm still serving on active duty now. And I know all too well what this is about, and it's what it's been about from the very beginning. And it's about power. It's about asserting power. It's about the unwavering power that the military, the Navy thinks that they have. So much so that let's just remember how this all started. The Navy somehow thought that they reserved the right to withhold information from civilians, military service members, their families, and most importantly, from parents. From parents, they took away our right to protect our own children. This has been about nothing but power since the very beginning. Admiral Paparo, when he was nominated to be the Indo-Pacific commander over a year ago, made a promise and a commitment to Congress. He has not kept his promise, and that was to rebuild trust. He committed to it. I sat in his confirmation hearing. The Navy has not attended a single CRI meeting since Admiral Paparo took command. The last administration and this administration are both aware of that. This whole thing that the Navy's refusing to come has been all about decorum. I'd like to highlight the decorum in which the Navy has set the precedents. I'd also like to highlight the decorum in which our congressional delegation is showing right now with this administration. The expectations of us, a group of civilians who have volunteered our time for the past 18 months, far exceeds those with so much power. I'm appalled at the way the Navy has handled this from the very beginning, as both a civilian and as an active duty service member. I will also sign begrudgingly because I care more about the 93,000 people who were impacted, but I think it's a goddamn shame how the Navy continues to treat every member of the military, the civilian people who have been impacted by this, and every person who lives on that island. Thank you.
Well said, Mandy. Thank you. Go ahead, Tara or Michelle.
Michelle, do you have anything to say on this?
I fully agree with everything that everyone said. That's pretty much my thoughts on it. It's about trust. And these sort of moves don't really help me have more trust. However, I signed and sent my form because I'm willing to keep the communication lines open. However, every party feels secure. So I'm willing to compromise if this brings them back to the table.
Yep, agreed. Thank you, Michelle. All right, anything else before I move on from this agenda item? Okay, Tara, Red Hill Registry announcements?
The Red Hill Registry currently has pre-enrollment happening right now. It's at redhillregistry.org. You can do the pre-enrollment information, which is helping us to kind of identify where people are at currently so that we understand how to do our outreach efforts when formal enrollment takes place, which is scheduled for, I believe, early August. And we're expecting to have a nice festive event to kind of kick off the registry, and it'll be in person here on Oahu, but there will also be an online version, something I'm not sure what that is because I don't know how to schedule that kind of stuff, but they will have some sort of a thing to kind of try and create a sense of community amongst all of the people involved with the registry. But so be watching for that, and get signed up for the pre-enrollment. And if anybody has any questions about the registry ever, feel free to email me. It's T Sutton, my first initial and last name, and at redhillregistry.org.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, now we're going to move to the main topic of today's meeting. Would it be possible to turn my voice down? Thank you. I don't know if everybody else finds my voice as annoying as I do. All right, so we're talking about the conditional approval from the Department of Health to the Department of the Navy to reopen one of their source wells that was closed as a result of the Red Hill water crisis disaster debacle. All right, so we've got a lot to talk about in regards to this. Thankfully, we have Joyce here from Board of Water Supply. Thank you very much for coming back. And unfortunately, a representative from the Department of Health couldn't join us tonight, although they did try. Significant family emergency. And so we will just, lay out our concerns, and we're hoping that the FTAC meeting on April 9th will have this topic on the agenda and or the next CRI meeting when the Navy will be here. It'll be great to talk about this with them. All right, so to begin, there's a link to the actual approval in the agenda, and it's also posted on our website. And for people who are following along on Zoom, it'll be posted in the link will be in the chat. We have a presentation about the Red Hill shaft. So part of it is that there's a lot of confusion going on because there's a bunch of things happening at once. So I think we'll start first with trying to do some clarifying first, right? Okay, so this conditional approval letter is for the Halava shaft. This is so the Navy has several shafts, and so the Halava one is the one for which this conditional approval to reopen has been issued. And we can get into those details about what it actually says and what are the next steps and what our concerns are. And then at the same time, separately, there is public comment open for an environmental assessment on a treatment facility for the Red Hill drinking water shaft. And so that's the one that is directly next to, right where the contamination went in. And so they have a proposal the Navy has a proposal right now to run all of that water through granulated activated carbon filters and then serve it to their customers. So two separate things.
I think we're going to start with the Halava shaft.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So
thank you.
And then and we can get into more detail as we go. So for the Halava shaft. Yeah, the Navy. Additional confusion. So there are two shafts named Halava. One of them is the Board of Water Supplies, and one of them is the Navy's. And if I fail to say anything, we're talking about the Navy Halava shaft today. All right, cool. Okay, any other clarifying things that we need to say? Yes, take it away, Lima.
I just wanted to clarify that the Navy Halava shaft is adjacent to the civilian Halava shaft.
Right,
they're not far away from one another.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So what's happening in this letter is the Department of Health is allowing the Navy to turn this shaft back on so that they can start testing it and monitoring it. There's several conditions, steps that the Navy has to take in order to adequately monitor this water from the Department of Health's perspective. And I think we should go through some of those because it's very concerning. The main things that I want to highlight for people are well, first, that they acknowledge that this facility was shut down, this Halava well was shut down due to contamination from the Red Hill crisis. That number 10 on this conditional approval letter makes clear that this water source will not be reactivated until it complies with what the requirements that the Department of Health have for clean drinking water. So it is not that they're going to turn this on tomorrow and people are immediately going to start drinking it. But this does signal that we are well on our way to this water source being eventually used for regular drinking water. We should talk through some of our concerns about how this is being handled. One of my concerns is that, there's zero consideration given for the impact of turning this source back on to the Department of Health, to the Board of Water Supply, the municipal water supply that's right next to the Navy's water supply. And I also have real problems with the way in which the testing that they are describing here is being done. They, it should be done by a third party. It should be done at a lab that's on island, but we don't have that facility. Which is something like to ask the Department of Health about. And also the frequency of the testing is not enough, and we want it to be done ongoing. And then sort of more fundamentally for me is that I am concerned that this approach to handling turning on the source of water again creates a situation where we basically become comfortable with drinking contaminated water because it's been run through a filter. You know, Oahu had the cleanest water. We had the best water. And then the military showed up and the plantations. And now our water supplies are highly contaminated. And it's to the point now that it's very dire. It's not clear how we're ever going to get this contamination out of our water supply. In addition, there's the fuel to begin with. There's all the additives in the fuel, and then there's all of the contaminants related to the firefighting foam, right? The forever chemicals as they are called. And there doesn't. I'm concerned that it feels like there is not a commitment yet to making sure that our water is cleaned up as quickly as possible, recognizing that this is a huge task, that we're going to have to invent new things in order to be able to clean this water. But I'm committed to doing that, and I want to see that kind of commitment from our elected and appointed leaders. Yes, Helani.
Yeah, so I just want to clarify that this conditional approval allows the Navy to pump water from the Navy IAEA Halava shaft. Prior to this approval, which was dated February 7th, 2025, the shaft was not being pumped. Now there is water being pumped from this shaft, then treated. It's being tested, treated, and then tested again. And then from my source at the open house, it's actually being left in a yard somewhere on base. So it's just being let go on base. That's of concern. And the tests are not on the Safe Water website, even though it is part of the extended drinking water monitoring plan. And that's part of the agreement, is that it would go on the Safe Water websites. The other concern here is that the memo for the conditional approval is dated February 7th. We were not informed of this until last week. And then we were the ones to inform the Board of Water Supply about this conditional approval. And if any of you know anything about water, like how kind of like how water moves underground, is that if you're pumping from one shaft, then it's going to change the way the water is moving underground. And to not inform the Board of Water Supply of this, I think is a real mishap here. So I'm very interested to see what the Board of Water Supply, some of your I'm interested to hear your comments on this whole situation, and what maybe are some of your concerns. Thank you.
So Mandy has her hand up. We can move to the Zoom for her. Turn the sound up so that we can hear it.
Can you hear me, Marty?
Yes, I can hear you now. Thank you.
You raised a lot of fantastic concerns that we all have. My number one concern, and Haylani touched on it, my number one concern is, again, a complete lack of transparency with the community. Contrary to what the Navy continues to brief Congress and senior leaders that they sneak onto the island to include the new administrator of the EPA last week, they continue to brief everyone about this robust plan that they have to rebuild trust and transparency. And it has been nearly 2 months that this letter was sent, and not a single person has been transparent to any of us, to the people who live on that island, to impacted families, to folks who are on that drinking water system. I have a real issue with that because, Again, 93,000 people are served by this drinking water system. And most of the people predominantly are military families who come in and out, every 2 to 3 years. And there are thousands of families like mine and like many of the women on this Zoom tonight who moved into military housing without having a clue about Red Hill and what Red Hill was. And that is still the issue today because this water crisis is not included in the lease or even an addendum to the lease or a modification to the lease. So thousands of people are coming onto the island. People are coming onto the island every single day and they don't have a clue about Red Hill, the history of Red Hill, or what their drinking water system, what the pipes in their homes have been to previously and what they are about to go through with turning on this shaft. So my number one concern is the lack of transparency once again, that we have not learned a single lesson since 2021.
Yep, agreed. Other comments before we move to Joyce? Okay, Joyce, would you like us to pull up the map? Is that helpful or?
I think we're okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members. Thank you for the opportunity for us to be here today. I'm Joyce with the Honolulu Board of Water Supply, addressing Helani's questions about our concerns. There is, from the Board of Water Supply, we found out recently about this conditional approval of the Aiea Halava shaft, the Navy's Aiea Halava shaft being turned back on. And there is concern from the Board of Water Supply in terms of the uncertainty on the impacts of the underground water flow because Aiea Halava shaft is to the west of our Board of Water Supply Halava shaft. So, and the Red Hill shaft is actually east of our Halava shaft. So in a sense, our Board of Water Supply's Halava shaft is kind of sandwiched in between their two sources. So turning on Aiea Halava shaft, would it draw contaminants across the valley from Red Hill shaft all the way over to Aiea Halava shaft? We're not too sure. So there is that concern. We're not too sure. And we understand that, this drinking water source is important for the Navy because as of right now, they're still running on Waiava shaft, which is their single source. And in the past, when they had an emergency water main break, the Board of Water Supply was able to provide that emergency connection for them. But in terms of long-term water system operating wise, having a sort of a redundancy, a second source for the military, it would be wise so that they have a backup source should something happen to their Waiava shaft. But I think one thing we do want to note is that the Aiea Halava shaft is actually a little small, so I'm not too sure how well it would be able to support Waiava shaft should that go down or any sort of operation happens. From also, I think transparency is also another thing. I think I asked Ernie before I came out if he had any comments, and he said that he actually recommended and suggested to the military Navy staff that they should really inform their customers about turning their water back on, specifically from Aiea Halava shaft because, they are the receiver of this water, and the condition of the water, the customer has the right to know. But yeah, that is what we have so far. I'm open for any questions.
All right, yeah. Open up to questions from the other CRI members. Go ahead, Ilima.
My concern has to do with liability. My concern is that because of actions that the Navy is taking, maybe prematurely, that the if it becomes tainted, that the Board of Water Supply might somehow unwittingly become responsible, legally responsible, and I'm wondering about that. If that's something that Board of Water is concerned about, the actions of the Navy that may cause liability to be incurred by the Board of Water?
I'm not too sure about that. I mean, with underground water flow, there's just a lot of uncertainty right now. We don't know what the characteristics is like, how water is flowing. So there are studies being done. That's why we're trying to drill more monitoring wells, trying to gather more information so that we can better understand how the plume may be moving, if it's moving towards our border water sources, if that's going to cause contamination. So yeah, we're not too sure, but we're on the path of finding out.
And one other question along those lines. The map that I have seen about referencing our water system, it looks as if the water systems are all interrelated at a certain point. Am I incorrect in that? At a certain point they can...
So the border water supply, our pipeline is not connected to, so we have emergency connections between the border water supply's water system and the Navy's water system. However, those emergency connections remains closed at all times unless there is a emergency, and the Navy would have to request through our manager for, temporary opening of that. And before they even open those emergency connections, we make sure that they have the backflow prevention set up, that everything is tested, it works good, so that it can protect our border water systems pipelines before we would turn on that emergency connection. But in the case that where there's no emergency, no request coming through, our border water supply pipeline is separated from the Navy system.
Okay, so just to be clear, the water from the Navy system, if ever it's connected to the border water, it can't go backwards.
It can't go backward because of the backflow preventer in place.
And then what about the actual sources of water, like aside from the pipes, right? The big buckets of water underground that we all rely on, they interact with each other?
So that's one of the things that we're trying to figure out, how groundwater is moving. In theory, we do have just one sole source drinking water aquifer. So all of water comes from the single aquifer underneath our island. And the border water supply, we test our drinking water wells regularly, monthly, and as well as just wells around Red Hill in general, it's monthly. We do that monthly, sorry. So we are safe. Our drinking water is safe.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Go ahead, Bill.
Joyce, I have a question. As far as the test wells, is there any timeline as far as when those will be completed? Because you really need a system of those to sort of discuss some of the, or make conclusions on some of this water travel.
So I know the military, the Navy, they've installed a number of monitoring wells already. Most of them are actually located on the Red Hill bulk fuel storage facility property. I think as of right now, they have close to 40 monitoring wells. From the border water supply standpoint, we have a handful already established or in the process of being drilled. So I think during my board meeting presentation this past Monday, I mentioned that we have our monitoring well at Site H, which is along the Halava Valley access road right next to the prison. That one is in construction, almost completed. We have another one currently under construction at the Halava District Park. We call that Site A. So hopefully we can have more wells drilled as soon as we can.
Does this information, this conditional approval, does it change the priorities about which monitoring wells need to go in when? Like, do we need to focus down around this area?
Well, I think it also depends on our, I don't think the priority changed for any specific location as of right now, because ideally we want a grid of monitoring wells spread out. So any well that we can have move towards construction and development and testing, I think that's an extra data point that we have. So they're all high priority in my opinion.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Other questions?
So two questions. How far is the border water supply Halava shaft from the Navy Halava IEA shaft?
We put up a map for you.
And then the second question is, has the border water supply reached out to the Navy regarding this memo to find out how many gallons they're pumping each day, and just, I don't know, because I'm sure it's going to affect the water flow underneath. And one more question. Do you think that this will affect that red dye study they're doing on the water flow? Thank you.
Okay. So first question was distance-wise. I believe it's about close to a mile. So Halava Shaft, that's the one in the red circle, green right there. And their Navy IA Halava Shaft is at the little black redacted rectangles on the left. So it's about a mile. It's down gradient. In terms of the environmental assessment and this letter, we are actually, sorry, it was the environmental assessment, correct? Or
Did you were you guys able to reach out to the Navy and ask them about this conditional approval and how many gallons they're pumping each day as a result of this approval?
sorry, that I don't really know about that. I know Ernie and Erwin's been putting together discussion topics for the FTAC meeting, so it might be part of that discussion, but I'll double check and get back to you on that.
We can always add it to our list of 300 questions.
Yeah. And then the red dye study. Do you think that this is something that would affect the red dye study that the University of Hawaii, funded by the U.S. military, is doing to study the flow, underground flow of the water?
So I think it depends on how long this UH red tracer dye study lasts. To my understanding, it's actually going to be just a short-term study, and then they'll stop. We did just have a meeting with them this afternoon to get updates from UH, so we met with them. From what we heard is they have actually not seen any detections at their transducers or water samples. They did get a few detections at their carbon contactors that they had installed along their monitoring wells, but those levels they were saying it's somewhat low. But yeah, they have not seen much detections at all. And then as a result of that, they actually tried to flush the well by adding another 1,000 gallon of water down the monitoring well number 8. And they're just trying to see if they see anything, and they are thinking about maybe reducing the pumping of the Red Hill shaft, because right now they increased the Red Hill shaft pumping so that they can try to capture this red dye or try to see if it would create movement underground, but they're not seeing that. So they're thinking about maybe reducing that Red Hill shaft pumping.
Fascinating and up-to-the-minute updates. Thank you very much. Okay, so and just so people watching understand what this map is, so this map is an attempt to show some models, some theories on how contaminants would flow from the Red Hill fuel facility in a westerly direction, and it shows where like those green dots are places where the municipal water supply, the regular civilian water supply is pulled out. And the different colors are different theories, different approaches, different scenarios.
Correct.
So
they described it as each line is a scenario run for their simulation.
Right. And so the red dye tracer study is confirming this as far as we know so far. I mean, it's early days yet.
I don't think they have a good understanding just yet, so yeah, we're not too sure.
Okay, thanks. That's super scary. All right, other questions? Melody, please.
Thank you. Hello, Joyce. Thank
Hi.
you for coming again. You mentioned that if it's just the IL Halava shaft, there wouldn't be enough enough draw to close the Waiava shaft just on that shaft alone. So is there, would the Red Hill shaft then satisfy the needs that the Waiava shaft provides?
Well, I'm not too sure, but from what I understood is that before the November 2021 incident, Red Hill Shaft was their main source of water, and I think that can pump up to, sorry?
5 million gallons per day.
Correct. So it can pump up to 5 million gallons per day. And I believe IAEA Halawa Shaft, the Navy's IAEA Halawa Shaft is only like about 0.7 average pumping, million gallons pumping rate. So it's much smaller compared to Red Hill Shaft.
Okay, and right now I believe the Navy is putting the activated carbon filtration. I guess that would be for the IAEA Halawa Shaft?
I think they had already installed carbon filtration system for the IAEA Halawa Shaft, and then the environmental assessment, the draft environmental assessment that is due for review, that one is actually a system for Red Hill Shaft.
And it's only going to cover Red Hill and not the IAEA Halawa Shaft? to your
IAEA Halawa
understanding?
Shaft already has one in place.
I see. Okay, so we've got conditional approval for the IAEA Halawa Shaft, but to our understanding, there is no conditional approval for the Red Hill Shaft.
Yes, I believe
And
so.
then there was no EA required for the IAEA Halawa Shaft, although there is a EA required for the Red Hill Shaft.
That's a good question. Yeah.
Yes, your confusion is warranted.
Oh, well, there's inconsistencies here regarding the requirements of DOH.
Yes.
Okay, so the answer is yes, there is inconsistencies.
Yeah.
Okay, and insofar as Board of Water Supply, are you folks already in the process or will be in the process of installing a activated carbon filtration for your, I guess, Halawa shaft?
We did look into studies for what would work best should we detect at Halawa Shaft. Correct. We have been looking into that.
Okay, so that means it will, because right now it's closed,
Correct.
and so in the future it may be open.
We don't know just yet. It would depend on the water samplings that we have we gather from Halawa Shaft. Right now, yeah, so I know we've been detecting some contaminants at Halawa Shaft as is, so we need to address what type of contaminants we'll need to potentially treat, and then try to kind of scale up this treatment, and if it's feasible and if we have space to even accommodate this treatment system.
Okay. To my understanding, there has been no detections of PFAS in any of the Board of Water Supply wells.
Yes, well, so
Or-
there we have had a few detections of PFAS, and actually Halawa Shaft has had PFAS detections, but it's currently turned off because of the Red Hill concern.
Okay. All right. But there was some detections from the Navy's Waiawa shaft for PFAS.
I'm not too sure. I know they had the PFAS from the Army that was located from the Army location that's just down gradient from their Waiawa shaft. There's currently a PFAS investigation going on over there.
Okay. And does the activated carbon filtration, or as you mentioned at the last meeting, ion exchange filtration, are those sufficient for PFAS filtration?
So as of right now, I think granulated active carbon and ion exchange, those are two of the options available. There are others as well, but to answer your question of how effective they are in removing PFAS, it would depend on what is actually being detected at the source, and then what types of PFAS is being detected, and then it would govern what type of treatment we use to treat the water. Yeah.
Okay, because I believe it's the PFOA that's in the AFFF that spilled in
Mhm.
2022.
Yes, I believe that's the longer chain. So I think GAC.
Yes, the long chain.
Yeah, I think the GAC might be helpful.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, we've got questions online. We can go first to Mandy and then to Tara.
Tara's first. Take it away, Tara.
Okay, Tara, go ahead.
I want to ask a question on behalf of somebody in the virtual audience. The question is, what is the Navy's responses on the timeline for meeting the conditions of this approval? Does anybody know if there's a response to that? I know we don't have anybody to speak on behalf of the Navy, but has anybody heard?
I have not heard, and everybody's shrugging their shoulders here. So sorry.
Okay, Joyce, you
I
haven't
don't
heard
know.
anything either, correct?
No, sorry.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
I think we can just make our own assumption that the Navy does whatever the hell they want to on their own timeline. They don't care what a single regulator has to say about it. That's been clear with the lack of accountability. My question is, Joyce, on a scale of 1 to 10, how concerned is BWS or Ernie about this thing being turned back on? Because obviously, the community at large, BWS has been the most transparent and the one that we've trusted the most. So any indication on how concerning this is?
Well, I can't read Ernie's mind. He's not here, and I don't feel comfortable speaking on behalf of Board of Water Supply, but I can speak for myself as, just resident of Oahu. I would say I'm pretty concerned, close to 10, if not 10, just because there's so much uncertainty.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Joyce.
Thanks for your honesty. I appreciate it.
One quick question. Could you let everyone know what you do for the Board of Water Supply, Joyce? Joyce, you're not just a spokesperson, correct? Could you
I'm
describe
not,
to
yeah.
us your duties? Thank you.
Thank you. I am an engineer with the Honolulu Board of Water Supply. I've been with the board for about 10 years. I worked in our water resources division for a little bit and doing project review. So any sort of development that comes in that needs water, then I assess to see if our water system can accommodate them in terms of pressure, fire hydrant, fire flow. And in recent year, I transitioned over to the Office of Manager and Chief Engineer, working under Ernie and Erwin to help with the monitoring well designs that we are trying to put together, and any sort of special projects that Ernie and Erwin needs help with, then I'm there to help.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your expertise.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments or concerns about the conditional approval for the Navy's Halava shaft?
I would like to make a comment that I'm very concerned that the Department of Health hasn't let anyone know. So even if the Navy is not going to let it be known, I'm concerned that the Department of Health is not letting customers know. I think that this is really concerning. I'm actually a little alarmed that the media is not as concerned about this. I know that there are a lot of other things happening, including, Tutupele coming back again, but I don't know what could be more important than securing our water system here on Oahu. And I'm really concerned about the fact that the Department of Health has not been transparent. So we've seen pictures of them meeting with the EPA, but there's nothing in those photos or in the descriptions on the EPA website about why the Secretary of the EPA or the Director of the EPA came here and why the Secretary of the Department of Defense also had to see Red Hill. So it's very concerning, and somebody knows something, and I'm hoping our media can bring more attention to this matter. Mahalo.
Or that one of us accidentally ends up on the group chat.
I hope it's me.
Well, I mean, it really is playing Russian roulette. And I don't say that lightly because my child died from one gunshot to the back of her head. And I believe that everybody should have an opportunity to make an informed decision about whether or not they bathe their children in the water, serve their children this water. I think that parents need to be able to make informed decisions. And I wish that I could have done more to protect my child, but she was an adult when these things happened to her. But when she was a young adult and living on Kaneohe Marine Corps Air Station, they actually forbade them from drinking the water there, and she was able to move back home. So I explained to everyone that the reason why I joined joined the CRI is because I was concerned about what happened to my daughter, and this was back in 2010. But not every military member, not every military family has the ability to move back home with mom and dad. Elizabeth was able to do that back in 2010, but I'm concerned about the families now. I'm concerned that they're not able to make informed decisions about what they're ingesting or even bathing their children with. So I'm concerned that our top regulator, the Department of Health, seems to be MIA, at least for the community.
So I'm going to propose that the CRI, do a letter to the Department of Health and articulating our concerns. The things I've noted from our meeting so far, just, the overall thing about how contamination in our water is unacceptable and we need to focus on the cleanup. I'd like to propose that we require, to the extent that we can, that the Department of Health take the position that the Navy should be following the Board of Water Supply's testing regimen, so that we have data that we can compare same from the Navy side of the pipelines to the municipal side of the pipelines. Notice to the consumers, notice to the residents of Oahu. I want to know why there's no environmental assessment, and I want to have more notice in terms of when things are going to move on to the next stage, right? So right now in the conditional approval, it talks about 10 days notice before the source water is reactivated, and that is definitely not enough time. So I would like to have some sort of public discussion, whether it's at the CRI or at a meeting that the Department of Health hosts, that allows for us to discuss these concerns and questions. I'm also really concerned about which kinds of contaminants are being tested for. We've learned through this horrible experience that it really matters whether the contaminants are regulated, if they have environmental action levels or remediation action levels, or not. And so I think there's just a lot more we need to do to drill down to understand what's going on here. And so I think a letter might be the next best step for us. Okay. All right. Okay, I'm a chair. You move. I'm the chair.
I move that we have a letter for the Department of Health addressing all of the concerns as articulated by the chair.
Okay, thanks.
A second.
Yay.
Before we vote, I
Yes,
have my hand
yes.
raised.
Sorry.
Would like, that's okay. I want to suggest that the letter not only be addressed to the Department of Health, but we send it to the Navy as well.
Okay. Good idea. All right, and I also see that Mandy's hand is up.
Yeah, here's the thing. If the Navy refuses to participate us until and we've vocalized that we would follow CRI ground rules, right? And they still didn't show, and now they've demanded and they've actually evaded a $5,000 fine, right? Until we sign a document that says that we acknowledge ground rules. I think it is absolutely necessary. If the Navy has that much power that they do not have to follow a consent order to participate in a meeting with 10 volunteers that represent this community, then at a bare minimum, they can get every single resident to sign a document that says that they acknowledge what has happened at Red Hill and what is about to happen with this shaft. Just as Alima pointed out, everyone that is on that water system reserves the right to know so that they can make informed decisions for their family. For no longer does the Navy possess that much control that they do not have to inform their residents in the form of a document that every resident has to acknowledge before that water system, or excuse me, that shaft goes back live.
Yeah, agreed. Golf clap.
I think we should also suggest the testing be done not by the Navy, but by an independent third-party lab.
Got it.
Because their lab messed up, and
Fully independent.
how many thousand samples in the last 2 years?
Yeah, and this also raises further the need for our own local lab, which we've been fighting for years at this part. Okay, all right.
And the test results should be posted on the Board of Water Supply. Oh, I'm sorry, Department of Health website.
Okay. All right. Okay, anything else? All right. So amended, so moved. Any objections? Yada, yada. All right. Okay, let's move on to the other thing that's going on at the same time around the same kinds of stuff. The environmental assessment for the treatment facility at the Red Hill shaft. Okay, all right. So we do have a presentation for this, if you could pull that. Oh, wait, sorry.
Can
go ahead,
I-
Tara.
Is it
Yeah.
okay if I ask one last question before we move on?
Of course.
I just
you can
wanted
ask
to wait
two.
until I just wanted to wait till we were done voting. Given the module, the map, what is the likelihood that the contamination would spread west? And if it does, then would the Board of Water Supply put out more advisories with the DOH to the civilian population out there?
those simulations, it's there. How likely, we're not sure.
I'm having trouble hearing you. I'm sorry.
Sorry, what?
I'm having trouble hearing you.
So the likelihood of contamination spreading to the west side, there is definitely, likelihood as you've seen in the simulations models. We haven't really done too much of these modeling, so I would, defer to the Navy as they're doing their modeling. They have more information. When I went to the Navy Closure Task Force open house, I asked about, what is the likelihood of it reaching our sources, and they told me highly unlikely. But in my mind, I'm just thinking, but there's still a possibility. According to the model, we saw those little lines that does go up to our halava shaft. So I would say still possible for it to travel all the way west as shown in those simulations. Should we do see that at, should we do our regular monitoring, water sampling, and should the Board of Water Supply see those results, then we would definitely inform DOH, EPA, and also the community.
Thank you, Joyce.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anything else from those online? Sorry, I can't quite see that corner where the hand goes up, so yeah. Okay, all right, good. All right, good. If we can put up the presentation, thank you.
I know we're short on time, so this won't take too long, but I'm just gonna just share a little bit about the Red Hill Water Treatment Facility. And so there's two things going on with, so the Red Hill shaft was closed because it was contaminated, and that's a Navy shaft. And so that we were previously talking about the Navy Halava IAL shaft. So we're going to talk about tonight is just the Red Hill shaft contamination, the current activities going on, the environmental assessment, and the comment period. The next one. So what happened at Red Hill, November 2021, 20,000 gallons of jet fuel, JP5, leaked into the environment. Red Hill shaft was contaminated and then shut down on November 28th, 2021. This impacted the drinking water supply for 93,000 residents. Next one. Why it matters. So the Red Hill shaft is located above a major aquifer that supplies drinking water to Oahu. Fuel reached the well tunnel and the aquifer. Fuel contamination poses a threat to public health and ecosystems. Nearby water sources were turned off as a precaution. And we know that the Board of Water Supply turned off the Halava shaft as a precaution after the Red Hill shaft was turned off as well. Next one. The recovery and current actions. So the immediate response, including shutting down the well and skimming out the fuel. The granular activated carbon, or the GAC treatment, began to filter the water from this shaft. The treated water was and still is being discharged into the Halava stream. Next one. From January 2022 to April 2024, 4.2 million gallons of water were treated and discharged into the Halava stream. The approved amount, the permitted amount previous to the contamination was 5 million gallons. And that's a lot of gallons if you think about it. That's a lot of waste per day. It's per day now.
So at the height, the total is about 1 billion gallons that we've been wasted.
Yeah.
Of water. Isn't that wild? 1 billion gallons.
And they're not. They made no attempt until we brought it up to try to reuse that water. So on April 29th, 2024, they reduced it to 8 million gallons per day to conserve water, saving 72 million gallons per month. But Joycelyn just said that they did increase it recently.
Yes, for the red tracer dye.
For
study.
the tracer dye. Do you know how much they increased it to?
To about the 4.2 million gallons per day.
So it's back up to 4.2 million gallons. Okay, thank you. Some excess water is supposed to be reused for cleaning inside the fuel tanks. I can't confirm this. Thank you. Next one. The draft environmental assessment, or the EA. Can you make it a little bigger? Sorry. The Navy is proposing a permanent water treatment facility near the Red Hill shafts. The purpose of the facility would be to filter contaminated water so that it can be reused as drinking water. Part of the plan is to restore the Red Hill shaft to the Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickams water supply. It replaces temporary discharge into the Halava stream with water system reintegration. Right now, they're using solely the Waiava shaft water. So they're taking water from the public shaft, right? The public water. All water is public, actually, if you think about it. This action is part of a broader Red Hill shaft recovery and monitoring program. Okay. The project location. So the site is bounded by interstates H201 and H3 to the south and west, the Hawaii Department of Agriculture Animal Quarantine Facility to the north, and the U.S. Army Red Hill Family Housing to the east. The facility is to be built near the Red Hill Housing and Alia Manu. It's close to schools, homes, and the Halava Correctional Facility. Next one. Public concern and community impact. The proximity of the project to Iwi Kupuna and traditional cultural sites. It is close to a well-known site that is known as Elena, which is a very sacred place where Kanaka Maoli believe the souls of our kupuna leapt from or went and entered into the next world. OHA should be involved, but they're not as part of this. There's a lack of full kapa'akai analysis and EV consultation to evaluate how the project may affect Native Hawaiian rights and practices. The reopening up of the Red Hill shaft for public drinking water. There is a total lack of trust and transparency regarding the Navy's protection and monitoring of water sources. And so these are the public concerns and community and impact that are of concern. Next one. Oh, sorry. And then just a little bit on the kapa'akai analysis. The kapa'akai analysis is just evaluating it on how it would affect Native Hawaiian rights. So it's an important analysis used for it. That should be used on every project or any development. What the Navy must do. They should be monitoring the petroleum in the water, and it should be independent, transparent, and enforceable. And the public must have access to this data with regular updates. They should use non-contaminated water for the GAC filter cleaning to avoid reintroducing pollutants. They need to ensure cleanup and monitoring meets the highest environmental and cultural protection standards. And then I have up the 2021 Red Hill shaft samples. TPH was off the walls. Next one. What contaminants may be found in the source water at the Red Hill shaft? So you have volatile organic compounds, VOCs, heavy metals like lead. Lead is, any amount of lead is dangerous in water. Pathogens like bacteria and viruses, nitrates and, nitrites, pesticides and herbicides, industrial chemicals, and total petroleum hydrocarbons, TPHs, specifically benzene, and benzene is very dangerous, toluene, and so forth. So that these are some of the things that may be found in that source water. Next one. Monitoring and the Red Hill shaft. So the Red Hill shaft is being monitored quarterly under the Extended Drinking Water Monitoring Plan. And that plan ends this month, by the way. So as of April, the military has nothing holding them to continuing to monitor or test the water, which is very concerning. Tests for the fuel-related compounds and updates should be published on the Safe Water website. And I put the website address there, and we checked. The quarterly reports are there. The EPA insists the monitoring be legally enforceable, but the Navy's position is that they should be only monitoring the VOCs, and anything else is voluntary. So they don't have to monitor any other contaminants, just the volatile organic compounds. A little bigger, move it up a little, sorry. Monitoring currently covers VOCs, PAHs, and TPH. But again, the VOCs is the only one that they're saying that they have to monitor as part of their agreement with the EPA. Next one. Public comment matters. So what we need to do as a community is we need to demand a full environmental impact statement, not an environmental assessment. This would provide a deeper analysis of cultural impacts, emissions and health risks, long-term aquifer protection, and more community impact. And we need to push for transparency, accountability, and proper cleanup. Next one. And how to submit written comments. The deadline is April 20th. You can email your comments, the email's there, or you can mail your written comments. Attention Red Hill Water Treatment Facility EA Project Manager, and mail them by the deadline April 20th, 2025. To review the EA, go to bit.ly/Ola Ikavai, all caps, or you can scan this QR code. For some reason, it doesn't, that website is very temperamental. It won't, depending on what type of browser you're using and computer, it does work on my phone, but it doesn't work on my laptop. So what we need you to do is speak up to protect our water, defend our culture, and protect public safety. Can you go up a little bit? And demand truth and transparency from the U.S. Navy. Okay, and then I wanted to see if Marty could kind of talk a little bit about what is the difference between an environmental assessment and an environmental impact statement.
Accessing my old law school files. An environmental assessment is really, okay, so the idea about doing these kinds of documents, this is the National Environmental Policy Act and the Hawaii Environmental Policy Act. They are, for our purpose of this conversation, basically the same. The idea behind it is that if the person, the entity that is proposing to do something, if they just confess all the things that might possibly go wrong to the decision maker, the person who is issuing the permit, allowing them to move forward, whatever, then more informed decisions can be made. And the idea is that you do an EA first. If you have really no idea what the consequences of this project proposal could be, then you just do sort of a preliminary assessment, right? You kind of like, think about it really hard and write it down. There is written public comments, but that's it. For an environmental impact statement, in that situation, you've either completed your EA and came to the conclusion that there is a risk for significant impact, and so then you complete an environmental impact statement. Sometimes project proponents, they will just know that there's going to be a need for an EIS, and so they just skip the EA and go straight to the EIS. In the EIS process, the documents are much more robust, in depth. And you can require new studies and new analysis. They can't just use whatever is just pre-existing from before. The public comment is more robust. It includes a public hearing and also a response to people's comments. And then the idea is supposed to be in an EIS that the project proponents identify things that they can do to mitigate the significant harms that their document identifies. And then from there, it's supposed to be the decision makers take whatever information is in the EIS and put it in the permits themselves, so it becomes something that can be enforced. So the functional difference is between you're getting like the reading the back of the book, the cover, versus reading the full book. That's kind of like the idea. And then when you read the full book, there's a class involved where you can go and talk to people about it, and you can get responses to your comments and things like that. So.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything to add about the difference between an EA and an EIS?
Or about the Red Hill proposal for water treatments? Mandy has her hand up.
I have a question. It's been a while, so I'm a little rusty on this. But you mentioned, Heilani, that they would only be required to test for VOCs, not specifically TPH. Is that what I heard you say?
Yes, when I was reviewing some of the documents, and there was one letter that was sent from the EPA to the Navy,
Yeah.
Carnegie, right? And then his response was that, his response was basically and that was recently, that was in 2024. I would have to go back and look at that document, but there was a part where he said that they are only obligated to, or the only enforceable contaminant that they have to monitor is the VOCs.
Yeah, I'm concerned about that because that's the same narrative that they spewed in the beginning. That allowed them several weeks to flush the system. Remember when they were running our sprinkler systems and just flushing all of the water out of the fire hydrants and just flooding our streets and our yards? They were testing for VOCs, knowing damn well exactly what the contaminant was. They were not testing for TPH in the beginning. So I'm concerned that they would know what the contaminant would be, obviously coming, that's still, in our system, and that has come from Red Hill, which we know is fuel. So that's a huge concern to me. Again, it doesn't feel like we are applying lessons learned. And the Navy's been in this business since Camp Lejeune of ignoring things like this. So that's a huge concern to me.
Yeah, I can send you the documents too.
Yeah.
I'll send it to you folks.
It seems more like turning a blind eye. It seems intentional. And I'm not okay with that.
Yeah.
Well, I think the Navy is not the only entity that has turned a blind eye. I feel like the Department of Health has actually done that as well. We've also reached out to our CODEL. We've invited all of our congressional leaders, and so far we haven't received any kind of response indicating that they're necessarily concerned. So I'm not sure what our elected officials are doing for us right now.
You raise a great point. And I think something that's been my question, and I know we're short for time, but just something for us to ponder is why? Why is it that we're allowing thousands of people to, or we're assuming risk on the lives of thousands of people? I want to know, is it a money thing? Is it a tourism thing? Why is it that our Hawaii congressional delegation and those who are put in charge, whether it be the EPA or the Department of Health or whoever it may be, what is the real reason behind assuming so much risk on the lives of others? On the lives of our military service members that live there and their families, the lives of innocent children, and the lives of Native Hawaiians who will be there far after the military pulls its ass out. I'd like someone to answer that question. Obviously, no one in the room can do that, but can we please add that to the list of 301, please?
Yeah, duly noted.
It's political, it appears.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so I have this theory that it's like the new phase of colonialism, right? Destroy everything necessary for life, so that we have to pay for water, we'll have to pay for land, a roof over our head. I mean, just make it so hard to get these things that we'll be paying out of our ears, like just till the day we die.
Yeah.
So it's a way of controlling. There's and it's a kind of new form of colonialism. Destroy the water so that for the rest of our lives and for the rest of our children's lives, we'll have to pay for water.
I believe our state representatives and senators were also invited. Is that right?
Yeah, for
Yeah.
for the yes,
For
yeah, for
this-
certain
this
the
meeting.
districts affected. Yeah.
And it's really not just about like our public health and safety, right? When I went to go purchase water today for this event, local water is way more expensive than buying water from that comes in from outside of Hawaii. So how you figure that? It's going to cost me $1.02 a fluid ounce to purchase water from outside of Hawaii, but it's going to cost me, the cheapest would cost me, I think, 7.2 cents a fluid ounce for water that's produced here in Hawaii. So it's not just lives that are being impacted. The federal government has impacted Hawaii's ability to maintain ourselves economically. We know those businesses are not viable because they're not competitive. If people buy that water, it's because they want to spend the extra money, but a lot of people are not able to do that. So most of the people are going to buy the 1.2 cents per fluid ounce water from outside of Hawaii. This is really unfortunate because our local businesses are taking a hit as a result.
All right. Any other last comments on this from anyone online or in the audience? We can move to public testimony. We can actually start online if just because we usually start in person and yeah. Oh yeah. We should. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Yes. Are there any key bills that the people should know about?
Key bills.
Yeah,
Yes.
key bills.
In
There's a
other
long
words,
list here. We don't have to
narrow
go
it
through.
down.
Yeah, narrow it down. Right.
It's not all of the PFAS bills. Okay, so House Bill 505, HD1, SD1, and this calls for a Red Hill VI policy coordinator as well as a Red Hill remediation special fund. And this one is coming up for hearing in the Senate Ways and Means Committee. They'll hold a public decision making on April 1st at 10:01 a.m. So please, everybody, submit your support testimony. When it comes to Ways and Means, there's no live testimony. Everything is written. So please, and luckily we have enough time here. There's to put something in. Okay, second bill is SB 438 SD2 HD2, and this one calls for the prohibition to have a landfill over a aquifer. And it also includes the buffer zone, no pass zone of half a mile, and a prohibition to use fly ash and bottom ash from incinerators in construction and road work, and basically asphalt. And so this one is in its final committee, which is Judiciary and Hawaiian Affairs, and that is, the chair is Dave Tarnas, and he has not set a hearing date yet, so we need to ask that he please set a hearing date on this one so that we don't have to worry about having a landfill above an aquifer.
When is the crossover on that one? Is it April 2nd?
When is the deadline?
Yeah,
Do
it needs
we-
to be passed out by April 10.
April 10th.
April 10th. Okay, so we still have time for that one because it's in the last committee.
Yeah.
They had hearings yesterday, very full.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. And then the final one, Red Hill Connected, okay, is Senate Bill 639 SD1 HD1. And this one calls for all underground storage tanks and tank systems to be monitored, and any confirmed release, there's already a presumption that the company that owns the tanks are liable for any leaks. And this one, I believe, is in trouble because it should have already had its second hearing by last week, March 20th, and it still needs to be heard in Water and Land as well as Judiciary and Hawaiian Affairs. So I believe this one is not going to make it. Okay. And the rest that are on the list are PFAS related, and none of them made it. They may have gone through its first committee hearing, but no subsequent committee hearings, especially in Ways and Means. Okay, and then I did want to talk about the GMs. So Governor's Message 522. I know a lot of us, we have submitted testimony, and this is in favor of gubernatorial nominee Melanie Lau to maintain her position or have another term with FTAC, that's the Fuel Tank Advisory Committee. So we will be seeing her again on April 9th. And important one for all of us again is GM 583, and this is with regard to the Commission on Water Resource Management. There's been a big push to have Hinano Rodriguez pulled from a nomination and consideration, in which he did withdraw. And luckily, we do have another nominee, and that's Hannah Springer in GM 770. This one is to be heard only in Water and Land, and no hearing date has been set yet. So we're just watching out for that, and that should not create a problem. And this one is recommended by Wayne Tanaka and Sierra Club. So, of course, we're very happy with this nomination.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions about bills? Things happening in the Square building? Okay, great. All right. Let's pivot to public testimony because we're way behind schedule. All right. So we've got one in the audience and we've got one online. Yeah. Go ahead, Susan. You can come up here. Okay, two. I feel like an auctioneer. We've got two in the audience. All right. So Meredith, if you're interested in coming off camera and providing testimony, you can go after Susan.
Okay. Is this on? Hello. Can you hear?
I can hear you. I don't know about the rest of the world.
We can hear you online, Susan.
You can. Okay,
Yay.
great. Susan Gorman Chang. I was a member of the CRI for the first year and then cycled off last year. So I just wanted to give you some hard numbers on the unanswered questions. So just the Navy, we asked them 329 questions. That's just the Navy. There's other with EPA and DOH, but I haven't been following those because I'm not on the CRI anymore. The Navy answered 74. They still have 255 not answered. What happened was last May, Justin Newey emailed us and said they would no longer be answering our questions because of mediation, which doesn't have anything to do with answering questions that are written. You know, we were getting questions and some answers in between the CRI meetings, and then sometimes we would discuss them at the meetings. So they entirely cut us off on that. And I just want to take just one question as an example. Okay, so question 189 asked in November of 2023. We asked, why hasn't the Navy come up with a plan for using the water flushed into Halava Stream? Never got answered. So then question 223 on March 18th, 2024, please provide us with a plan by June 30th, 2024 for the rerouting, transporting, or piping the water currently flushed into Halava Stream and for use somewhere on the island. Please note, planning to flush less water is not the type of plan that is acceptable. We never got an answer. Question 224, at the FTAC meeting on March 7th, 2024, Adam Barnett stated that he had never been refused money that he had asked for in regards to Red Hill. Admiral Barnett, please ask and provide documentation of such requests for funds to pay for using trucks to capture and reuse the water that is currently being flushed into Halava Stream, and or funds to pay for building pipes down to other areas where this water can be used. That was March 18th, 2024. We still had no response. And then, of course, in the environmental assessment, they're still talking about water being flushed into Halava Stream. So that is just one example of one question that we asked again and again and never got answered. And then today, I did a search online to see, what was being done. And come to find out, the Navy, in an interview with Civil Beat, said, in regards to the question that Civil Beat asked him, which is the same question we asked them, for Civil Beat, they said, driving tanker trucks to carry the water from Red Hill to where it's needed was also deemed non-viable, according to Moody. Because of limited accessibility to the area, only one truck could go at a time. And then when they did their overall analysis, it was found that the emissions from the amount of trucks it would take to carry that water away would create a larger impact to the environment than the benefit of reusing that water. So, so they never bothered to answer our question, right? And then they gave this question, which they did not back up with any documentation, to civil beat. So just a frustration of mine when I was on the CRI, just the lack of response from the Navy and the lack of respect for our really good questions. And again, that's just tracing one question all the way through that was never answered. So I was hoping with the new CRI that the Navy could come and discuss and say, hey, maybe some of these older questions about the defueling, maybe those aren't applicable, but what about these? But they have cut off all communication regarding these questions. So I just find that very disappointing. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your diligence. Oh, wait, we have questions. Go ahead.
I don't have a question necessarily. I just wanted to thank you, Susan, for everything you've done. You're so organized and very detailed. I wanted to let you know that we have heard from the Navy saying that once our meetings resume, that we'll be able to resume asking questions again, but they will only answer questions from one individual. So we'll have to figure that out. But they are going to be, they said that they're going to resume answering questions
And they'll
again.
answer all these back ones.
Yeah, so perhaps we can go through those again and figure out which are the questions we really are burning to learn about.
Right. And also they had said that to me, and I was the one person who was gathering all the questions from the CRI and the community. So that was already being done, but that's okay. Let's move forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Susan.
I also wanted to add that that was just all that list of questions that she was talking about. Just go to August 29th, 2024, as we kind of stopped asking questions because they stopped showing up. But I will promise you that I'll keep track of the questions and I'll try to make them answer it. I'll just hand them over to them.
Thank you very much, Melissa. Okay, next testifier we have Tara Rojas and Meredith Wilson. Hey. You guys can John Campo for who goes first.
I think Tara needed to head out, so you can go ahead, Tara.
Tara might not be able to go right now. Why don't you go ahead, Meredith?
All right, cool. Good evening, everybody. Aloha. I'm really proud of you guys still being here. It's just absolutely asinine that I log in and there's no one sitting there with you guys. Like, it's just really frustrating, but thank you still for being there. The conditional approval letter, looking at it a little further, like Kaylani and Mandy have mentioned, TPH is not even required for them to reopen this shaft. As somebody who really looked into the chemical constituents as anybody else that was affected by this directly, TPH is a major indicator of not just JP5, but jet fuel, which is what was held at Red Hill Bulk Fuel Storage Facility. So for that to not be included, I don't care if it's a regulated contaminant, the Department of Health needs to absolutely require that for them to reopen the shaft. Otherwise, it's just absolutely foolish for them to think that we're going to be okay with that. Secondly, the groundwater flow report that the Navy put out in September, it's hella long, not fun to read, mostly because it's heavily redacted, mostly of the pumping rates. And even their words say that increasing or decreasing a pumping rate directly affects how something is contained, AKA pulled into the capture zone, AKA pulled into a water well shaft. So it's absolutely bullshit that they can't show us what pumping rates were. And I can tell you why is because they don't want to tell you what their pumping rates were from May through December of 2021, because that would show you exactly what was pulled into our water wells and that we were poisoned before November of 2021. It all blurs together. It was all bad. So that's really frustrating. I know they say that they have to redact it. They're required to because of DOD regulations. Other water systems do not have to redact because they're not the DOD. So yet again, it's really frustrating that we can't understand our water system because mostly because they're scared of it being sabotaged, which is ironic in this situation because we feel like it's already been sabotaged, not obviously intentionally, but it certainly feels that way when it comes into your house, into your body.
Negligently. Yep.
But the last thing I'll say is just a reminder about the National Academies of Science still has their consensus study going on. It's mostly for studying how to give us clinical guidance, not just us, but future generations maybe. And they have 3 listening sessions coming up in April and May. Look on the website. And they'll also be on island in June 24th through 26th. So just clear that out of your calendar now. So we really need to have strong support there in person because we'll be talking with a committee that's really, really experienced in the health field, in ground, on the ground kind of situation. So I just really hope that you all will participate because we really need to show strength still.
Thank you very much, Meredith. Tara, are you able to speak now? And if not, we can come back to you after. No worries.
Aloha, aloha. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, aloha. No, just mahalo piha to y'all again for always being on top of everything. I just had a quick question, kind of related because it has to do with the water use. Have you also heard of the sewer fee increase, just kind of coming up?
Mm-hmm.
And just, with what I was hearing about, the Navy proposing to open the water and just how it all ties in, to everything. So I just wanted to bring that to the forefront. And again, not only in addition to Navy, just I think all military as well, just the continuous gaslighting and just the fudging of giving straight, clear answers, as Mandy had mentioned. And yeah, and just that our regulators are not regulating. So I'll bring it up again in case you didn't hear this the last time that even, for example, on Schofield, the lead in the water there, is that something from the Navy system? Because they're not even letting new people coming to the islands that they've been here about a year about even what's happening with the water system and the fact that there's lead in the water. That last semester there was a student that received the letter, and these new students, they didn't even know anything. She's like, oh, no wonder, I wonder if that's how come my husband, he's been having like stomach issues. And then she had like issues with I think her sore throat. That's what kind of alerted me, and like, fever and whatnot. So just not feeling well. So just the fact that still to this day, they're not even taking care of their own members.
Yes, thank you very much, Tara.
Comment. Mahalo.
Hello.
Hello.
So 3 things. This shaft that they're going to... Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Davianne Momilani Thomas. I am born and raised from Oahu and still an affected family member for Red Hill. Still living on Pearl City Peninsula 10 years. So 3 things. This shaft, is it going to be also going up to Ford Island? Because we also got the pipes, the NAVFAC plumbing pipes that comes underwater on the ocean floor of Pearl Harbor to Pearl City Peninsula.
I don't know. That's a good question.
Okay.
I think the
Me
Red
and
Hill shaft will be the main provider for the water, as Joycelyn said too. So if they reopen that one, then that would be the main provider for, and then the IAEA, the Navy Halava IAEA shaft will provide like extra water as well.
Holy snap. Yeah. A lot of, I'm going to say a lot of the new Hawaii military community really needs to know, especially our local community that all eats and drinks beverages all on the Navy plumbing system, where there's bars and restaurants located, even Wanalua Shopping Center. So my second thing I want to also point out is that letter that you folks want to propose or give to the Navy. I can sponsor you all on base. I'll admit that publicly. Yeah, I can sponsor you all on base. Okay. I am concerned as a born and raised and 17-year former Navy wife and community advocate for our military community, as I was for several years. And I'm concerned about this shaft opening. My ohana in our home of Pearl City Peninsula Navy housing is now using the water. I have fears of this water because remembering what Board of Water Supply told me, Uncle Walter Chun and UH that found JP5 throughout our Pearl City Peninsula. I know that my hair is not being lost anymore. I thought it was me turning 45 years old in 2021. A lot of my health symptoms has improved, but the concerning is for my youngest son who's 19. He is still bleeding from his intestines. So, already Kaiser, his former pediatrician, found in 2022 that a lot of his health symptoms he had since we first moved back on the Navy waterline in 2015 up until we went 100% cold turkey in December 5, 2021 is connected to the Navy's Red Hill. So that's my concern.
I have a question. So, are they replacing the hot water heaters at the Navy housing in Pearl City Peninsula?
I'm still waiting for that. I found out last minute because of miscommunication in my home. The morning they ended up coming to my house, which was just last week. The guy just came. He's a third party. They just changed the aerators. Am I saying it right? The aerators of the faucet, and they changed our shower. So they changed all the bathroom aerators and the kitchen aerators, and they changed the showers of our house, of our master bedroom and the boys' bathroom. And that's all they did. And I asked them if the filters are going to be included in and hot water heaters. And my landlord has not responded to me on that yet. So I will find out tomorrow morning, and I'll let you guys know, because I know you guys. Yes.
Thank you.
That's it? Okay.
I have a quick question.
Nope, lied. Sorry.
Sorry about that. I think that it's not a bad idea for us to be reminded about some of the symptoms that folks experience. Many of us are not on the water line, so we don't know. I'm curious, could you share with us some of the things that you experience and what some people may want to look for as they're getting closer to reopening this water?
Sure. The first main one was our youngest son. He was only in elementary at Lehua Elementary School in Pearl City. He was missing school every single week. We would go to ERs, we would go to specialists with the military, and they were stumped. They would say, your son is healthy. And it was going on from 2015 up until we went cold turkey, 100%, not touching the island tap water, flowing through Pearl City Peninsula and everywhere the Navy NAVFAC plumbing pipes exist in December 2021. And that's when things started clearing up. Another one is, sorry, I had to share that because that's one of the signs, missing school a lot. Another signs is sinus. That's the mild problem. Sinus, things that look like a cold, feelings of the flu. Even when you go doctors or ER and they say you have no virus going on and there's no VOG going on as well too, because I was debunking a lot of all these years, calling up scientists at the emailing them everything, you know. What else? Loss of hair. And I'm not talking about just few strands. I'm talking about like a whole patch just falling out like that. And it started happening to me by summer 2021. Until we stop using the water. Another thing is digestive problems, okay? Even though I was eating so 100% clean and healthy since January 2021, I don't know what the problem was. I mean, I was still getting the runs, even my youngest son. Feelings of nauseated. My youngest son even passed out in the bathroom tub and got pretty much unconscious. Lot of headaches. My youngest son experienced a lot of headaches, migraines. Optometrists and doctors couldn't figure out what it was. They kept thinking, oh, maybe the stress, maybe him playing Roblox or like a lot of the computer games or a lot of the computers he was doing. Your eye visions for the reading starts diminishing. Hives, we noticed that too. Because it was even the specialist at Tripler, Belknap was his name. He was for the immunologist, allergist over at Tripler. And he actually told me and my youngest son, because we kept going because he kept having eczema every time we would be eating at Wanalua Shopping Center, the Navy Exchange, cooking at home with the tap water, right? But we kept thinking it's food allergies. You know, I'm like, dang, this is like pizza. This is stuff he eats, hot dogs and Kalua pig, lao lao. I mean, dang, poi, everything, you know? And he'll keep breaking out. And finally, this one specialist told us, he looked at me in the eye by fall 2019. He says, Mom, what is that in your son's flask? I'm like, oh, that's our drinking water. From where? From my kitchen. It has filters on it. And he goes, test, 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 test. So, you know, I was oblivious to all this. I'm like, how? It sounds like a fish aquarium I got to do to testing my water, huh? So, yeah, because anyway, sorry. But those are the main things. And lethargic, feeling lethargic. Because the last time I felt lethargic and metallic tongue tasting on my tongue was in 2022. Even though we stopped using the tap water, Uncle Walter Chun came into our home, Pearl City Peninsula. He found out the corporate. He's like, when you flush your toilet bowl without closing the lid, or when you're running even the cold showers or the hot showers of your sink or your showers, it's going to aerolize into the air. And if you're running the central AC of your home, that's how I was breathing it in. So we stopped that. Our dog died. You know, we had him since 2016, 4 weeks old. Yeah. He just died back in February. And he was starting to have joint pains, the same problems that a lot of our affected families had with their pets. That's all I could think of right now on the back, but it was a lot. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Okay.
Thank you, Mommy.
Thank you, Mommy.
Jamie Simnick, would you like to say something?
Aloha. One thing to pay attention to with them turning the shaft back on and symptoms is the pets are the coal mine in the canary, as people have said, and the pets will avoid the tap water. So that's one of the first things I would pay attention to. If you notice that your pet is avoiding the water, then I would stay away from it, or I would start to question if there's issues going on with the water. I have major concerns like everybody else with the Halava shaft being reopened. Speaking on medical, sorry, I don't know if people are aware or the community is aware that there is a new secretarial designation letter that has been put out that has opened up military members or non-military members or members that family members that were affected in 2021 that can prove they were on the water line or in the military homes that no longer have TRICARE can go to any military facility in order to seek care until March of 2026. I wanted to ask the Board of Water Supply, with these modules coming out or these temporary modules or guesses of where the flows are going to be done. I know they're saying at the end of the summer that we should have more data from the red dye with the Navy. Is there any chance of getting any preliminary results from that? And because as we know, or as I know, there's been since 2021 other areas that were affected. So I truly have a real concern and fear for the shaft being turned back on and the more damage that's going to be done.
In terms of modular results from the Red Hill Tracer Dye study, I'm not too sure. We are having monthly meetings. UH have been very nice in terms of agreeing to meeting with us monthly to provide us updates on what they're finding. So if we hear anything, we find out anything, we'll share it with the community for sure.
It'll be notified publicly.
I will present it during our board meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
And
then-
if I'm here at the CRI, I'll mention it.
So we can find out information at the regular meeting of the Board of Water Supply, and then also the regular CRI meetings. We'll share that information.
Yeah, if I hear anything, I'll share it with you all.
Thank you.
And then just so people pay attention for the symptoms as well, it's very much like COVID symptoms. You'll get the burning throat, the metal taste, yes. And then the gastro pain, it starts off mild with it being at the very top where the esophagus and the stomach connect. You'll get a burning pain or a sharp pain, an occasional sharp pain in your kidney or your livers. And, you know, as you're exposed more, it becomes more frequent. The diarrhea, the vomiting, and the constant nausea, the headaches, nothing will touch it, no migraine medication. And sometimes there's silent headaches where you get the black spots in the auras. It's very scary, it's very dangerous, and the consequences of the long-term exposure and harm is very real, and it doesn't go away. So just everybody be safe. And I thank the CRI, I thank the Board of Water Supply, and everybody that keeps advocating for the truth and the transparency.
Yeah, thank you very much for sticking with it. Okay. Yeah, okay.
Sure. I just want to do a shout out to the Savers for Water, Campbell High School junior students who gave out 150 cases of water this past Sunday to the Eva community. And they also gave out information on where residents can call to report contamination in their water. So I just wanted to give a shout out to them. And it's very hopeful that they are getting involved with the water and protecting our vi.
Thank you very much. All right, we are down to the last 5 minutes. Any last comments? Other announcements? Parting ways? Yeah, go for it, Mai.
So mahalo, friends, for sharing the symptoms. As another affected family member, it shouldn't happen in the first place. Like, bottom line. I know we're reliving our symptoms and we're still dealing with health problems to this day, but they shouldn't open the shafts to prevent this from happening again. I mean, that's the bottom line. Like, why I gotta go tell people to believe me about symptoms? That shouldn't be my kuleana. My kuleana is to prevent them from opening that shaft in the first place. So how are we gonna make that happen? I don't know, an act of God. Maybe SecDef will just grow a heart and be like, okay guys, fix the problem, and we're gonna pour all this money and filter it. And I don't know. I don't have the answer, but I just want to not just prepare people for the worst, because it's hell. It's living through hell. That was our life in 2021. And I don't want anybody else to face that future. So we have to come up with some kind of solution to tell the Navy, to make them believe us that this is real life for 93,000 of us, and to prevent catastrophe from happening again. And I did a little survey for my housing, so I still live in housing. No worries, sis. I'm not drinking no water. We get the bottled, the kind from every day. I did a little survey asking, because about 90% of my neighbors are new from 2021. So I'm like, guys, did housing tell you about the lead and the benzene in your water since you're moving in? Is it in your contract? And majority of them said, what, Red Hill?
Oh, goodness.
I had 3 options. I said, yes, housing informed us. No, housing did not inform us. And the third option was, what's Red Hill? And they're like, what's Red Hill?
Wow.
So, hello, housing is not telling people when they move in about the lead in their pipes. Okay. So, there we go. It's going to happen. And I hate to say I told you so. And I don't want anybody else to get sick. So, I don't know.
Well, we have learned that from the just recently with this appointment to the Water Commission, that when people speak up and engage and are tenacious about it, pleasantly pesterful, we can actually get decision makers to change their minds. And so I would like to think that if we are able to make a strong case and really hold them to it, that we might be able to convince them to at least delay things. The water is not being delivered to people right now, so we still have chance to prevent that. So yeah, we keep on keeping on. Tara, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I know we're running low on time, but I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who shared about the kinds of symptoms and things that to keep for families to keep an eye out for. That's not an easy thing for people to talk about. And so, it's difficult for me too, just to kind of say, hey, just keep an eye out for this, that, or the other. It's hard to go back mentally into that time period. But I really want to say thank you also for bringing up pets, because pets really are kind of that canary in the coal mine type thing. And you know, my pets got sick before the people got sick and were more dramatic about it, I guess, as the people in the house got sick slowly. But there were, other things that in our house, I have asthma. And so my asthma was exacerbated in those first few days as things were going through the home. And that wasn't something that I, would have thought about otherwise. But so just keeping an eye on that, but also just remember that if you hold your glass to the water, look for if there's any kind of sheens or any kind of, if it just looks different. My water never smelled differently. So that is something you can look for, but, look for other markers as well. That's all I have.
Thank you, Tara. We've got Mandy and then Michelle.
I just wanted to say a quick plug. I know that there's a lot of moving parts and pieces, but I did want to announce, I think we put out last time, but CRI was invited to participate in an HVAC roundtable hearing. And because I'm here local in the DC area, I'm going on behalf of the CRI. But we will be joining a whole host of folks. Red Hill's been invited, Fort McClellan has been invited, Fort George, base housing to talk about, groups from base housing talk about mold, folks from the Nevada test site, burn pits will be there. And then there will be a whole host of veteran service organizations. So to mention a few, TAPS will be there, DAV will be there, Disabled Veterans of America, Veterans for Wars, the American Legion will be there, RAND will be there, the Environmental Working Group. It's a huge opportunity to put Red Hill on the radar to the folks on the Hill. And so a couple of things that I certainly, besides giving a quick history lesson on what Red Hill is certainly discussing what Mai just brought up about how new, service members and their families and even civilians on the water line are coming in and they're not being informed. We're going to be talking about mandatory testing when there's a known contaminant and known toxic exposure. We're going to talk about mandatory medical monitoring, the obligations the military has once they poison people. And so if anyone else has ideas as to things that they would like us to bring up in that hearing, please email me. It's amandafint@gmail.com or shoot me a text for those that have my number. But or you can send an email to our Red Hill email address. But that'll be on April 8th, and I'm happy to relay whatever, the major concerns are. So thank you. And I'm sorry I didn't mention that at the beginning, Marty.
No worries. Thank you very much, Mandy. You got it in at the end. It's all that counts. Okay, Michelle, go ahead.
Hi. So, yes, along the lines of notifying residents, that's something that as a sticking point. I do have a community petition that we've been collecting signatures on to ask for that. I have noticed when new residents move in that they aren't aware of these issues. They don't even know what Red Hill is. And I have my spiel, I tell them. The other thing was about 6 months ago, I had requested to the JBBH Safe Waters website that they make that the hotline number more prominent so that you could see it, so that it wasn't on a small box where you have to scroll down and in the fine print. And that has never happened. They said they were going to change that. And now we only have a month left of being able to get our water tested. Find that interesting. Anyway, as far as symptoms, yeah, they had they even have a thing on there that says, "Oh, this is how many calls are down."
Yeah.
Above where the actual phone number is.
Yeah.
So, okay, yeah, no, we have minimum calls are going down because people, and I just give people the number and tell them to call and all of that. Anywho, other symptoms that neurological issues, so tremors, a little hand shaky, a little leg shaky, if that's also another symptom to keep out for. You'll see it in some of the pets will probably start having tremors. That's when neurological issues, not a health symptom.
Thank you very much, Michelle. And yeah, we are doing a good job amongst ourselves, doing all that we can to notify our neighbors and to notify the public and to keep on keeping on. Like the fact that we are still here, right? I think the Navy was of the perspective that if they just stopped showing up, we would eventually get bored and go away. Little do they know that we are too tenacious for that. So yeah, we keep on keeping on, and we will eventually get to where we need to be. And we aren't. I mean, that's the main thing, right? So long as we don't give up, we still have a chance. So, all right. On that note, everyone have a nice weekend, and thank you very much. Next meeting is April 17th. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.